My wife always packs for business trips like she's prepping for D-Day. This time, it was just a weekend with the girls in Bar Harbor, or so she thought I believed. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. I'm Eli Baxter, 43 years old, owner of Baxter's Used Cars in Willoughby, Maine. Not exactly the American dream, but it pays the bills and keeps my wife Melissa in her designer suits. She's a lawyer at Drake & Associates downtown, the kind of woman who corrects your grammar while she's stabbing you in the back. It was Thursday night when I found it. Melissa was in the shower, humming some tune she'd been singing all week. Her purse sat on the dresser, and something made me look inside. Call it intuition, or maybe just the fact that she'd been acting stranger than a cat in a dog park. The burner phone was tucked behind her makeup compact, a cheap flip phone that had no business being in a lawyer's purse. My hands shook as I opened it, scrolling through messages from TK Travis Kemp, her ex-boyfriend from college, the real estate developer who drove around town in a BMW like he owned the place, which, considering how much property he'd bought up, maybe he did. The messages made my stomach turn, explicit plans for their weekend getaway, mocking comments about poor Eli and his pathetic little car lot. One message particularly stuck with me. He's too stupid to figure it out. We could do this in his own bed and he'd probably thank us for warming it up. I snapped photos of everything with my own phone, my jaw clenched so tight I thought I might crack a tooth. At least she wasn't cheating with a poet. Travis was just as shallow and predictable as I'd always thought. The shower stopped running. I slipped the phone back into her purse and sat on the bed pretending to watch TV. Melissa emerged in her robe, hair wrapped in a towel. "You're up late," she said, not really looking at me. "Couldn't sleep. Thinking about the weekend. You sure you don't want me to drive you to Bar Harbor?" She laughed, the sound sharp as broken glass. "Don't be silly. Sienna's picking me up. Besides, you'd be bored out of your mind with a bunch of lawyers talking shop." Sienna Drake, her law partner and enabler. I'd bet my best car that Sienna knew exactly where Melissa was really going. "Well, have fun with the girls," I said, the words tasting like sawdust. Friday morning came too soon. I watched from the kitchen window as Melissa loaded her overnight bag into her Lexus. She'd dressed down for the occasion, jeans and a sweater instead of her usual power suit. Even her perfume was different, something expensive and sultry that she'd never worn for me. She kissed my cheek goodbye, a perfunctory peck that barely made contact. "See you Sunday night," she said. "Don't wait up." I wouldn't have to. I had plans of my own. After she left, I called Frankie Torino, my oldest salesman and the closest thing I had to a best friend. Frankie had been selling cars since before I was born, and he knew every trick in the book. "Frank, I need a favor. Remember that GPS tracker we used to catch the kid who was stealing hubcaps?" "Yeah, boss. What's going on?" "I'll explain later. Can you meet me at the lot in an hour?" Frankie's gravelly voice carried concern. "You sound like hell, Eli. Everything okay with you and the missus?" "Everything's about to be a lot clearer." The tracker was small enough to slip into Melissa's suitcase while she was loading the car. I'd also disabled the GPS in her Lexus. She'd assume it was just another electronic glitch. The woman who could argue constitutional law in her sleep couldn't figure out how to reset the clock on the microwave. By noon, I was following the tracker's signal north toward Rangeley Lake. Not Bar Harbor, not even close. Travis Kemp's lakeside mansion sat on 20 acres of prime waterfront property, the kind of place that screamed, "I have more money than taste." All glass and steel angles jutting out over the water like some modernist middle finger pointed at the sky. I parked behind a cluster of pine trees about a quarter-mile down the road and pulled out my binoculars. Melissa's Lexus was in the circular driveway next to Travis's BMW. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, I could see them on the deck, drinking wine and laughing. My phone buzzed with a text from Melissa. Made it safely. The hotel is gorgeous. Miss you. I typed back, forgot your toothbrush. Should I drop it at the lakeside? The response came not from Melissa, but from a number I recognized as Travis's. Back off, Eli. You don't want to play this game. Oh, but I did. Hell hath no fury like a used car dealer scorned. Saturday morning found me at the lot early, drinking coffee that could strip paint and planning my next move. Frankie arrived at 8, looking concerned. All right, boss, spill it. What's got you looking like you want to murder someone? I showed him the photos from Melissa's burner phone. Frankie's weathered face darkened as he read. Jesus, Eli, I'm sorry. What are you going to do? I'm going to remind them both why you don't mess with someone who knows how to make people's lives difficult. The plan started simple. Travis drove a 2019 BMW X5, a lease through his company. All I had to do was call the dealership in Portland and inform them that there was a recall on that specific model. Something about a potential engine defect that could leave drivers stranded. As a professional courtesy, Baxter's used cars would be happy to provide a loaner vehicle while his BMW was being inspected. Frankie grinned when I explained it. You're going to give him one of the lemons, aren't you? The 2003 Ford Explorer. The one with the transmission that sounds like a dying moose. That's diabolical, boss. I love it. The BMW dealership was surprisingly cooperative. Travis Kemp wasn't exactly their favorite customer. He'd been late on payments twice and had a reputation for being difficult. They were happy to let us handle the recall as long as we provided proper documentation. By noon, we were driving up to Travis's mansion in the Explorer with official-looking paperwork that would fool anyone who didn't look too closely. I'd dressed in coveralls and a baseball cap, looking every inch the blue-collar mechanic. Travis answered the door in khakis and a polo shirt that probably cost more than most people's car payments. His face was flushed from wine and sun, and he looked annoyed at being interrupted. Yeah? Mr. Kemp, I'm here about the recall on your BMW. We need to swap it out for a loaner while we run diagnostics. He looked confused. What recall? Nobody called me. The dealership should have contacted you yesterday. Something about a potential engine defect. We're just being cautious. I handed him the paperwork. It'll just be for the weekend. Melissa appeared behind him, wrapped in a silk robe that I'd never seen before. Her face went pale when she saw me, but I kept my expression neutral and professional. Is there a problem? She asked. No problem, ma'am. Just a routine vehicle swap. Your husband's BMW needs to be checked for a potential recall issue. The word husband made Travis's jaw tighten. He glanced at the paperwork, clearly wanting to argue but not sure what to say. How long will this take? He demanded. Should have it back to you by Monday, Tuesday at the latest. Travis looked like he wanted to refuse, but the paperwork looked official enough, and Melissa was giving him a look that said not to make a scene. He handed over the keys with obvious reluctance. The loaner better be in good condition, he warned. Oh, it runs just fine, I said, which was technically true. The Explorer did run. The fact that it sounded like a cement mixer full of rocks and had a tendency to stall at traffic lights was beside the point. As I drove away in Travis's BMW, I caught sight of them in the rearview mirror. Melissa was gesturing angrily, clearly upset about something. Maybe she'd recognized me after all. My phone buzzed with a text from her. Having a wonderful time. The girls and I went shopping all day. Wish you were here. I texted back. Glad you're enjoying yourself. By the way, saw Travis Kemp around town today. Looked like he was having car trouble. No response. That evening I sat at the Rusty Anchor, nursing a beer and listening to Marcy, the bartender, gossip about the latest town drama. Marcy had been pouring drinks in Willoughby for 15 years, and she knew everyone's business better than they did themselves. You look like someone stole your favorite fishing pole, she said, wiping down glasses. Just thinking about marriage, Marcy. How two people can live together for 8 years and still be complete strangers. She leaned against the bar, her expression sympathetic. Trouble at home? Before I could answer, Sienna Drake walked in. Melissa's law partner was a sharp-faced woman in her 40s who dressed like she was perpetually on her way to court. She spotted me immediately and made a beeline for my table. Eli, isn't it? Melissa's husband? That's me, Sienna, right? Melissa talks about you all the time. She slid into the booth across from me, uninvited. I'm sure she does. Listen, I think we should talk. About what? About minding your own business. I heard you were asking questions around town, making phone calls. That's not healthy behavior for a marriage. I took a slow sip of my beer, studying her face. I'm not sure what you mean. I think you do. Melissa is a good friend of mine, and I don't like seeing her upset. Whatever you think you know, whatever you think you figured out, just let it go. Some things are better left alone. Funny advice coming from a lawyer. I thought you people lived for digging up the truth. Her smile was cold as January wind. We also know when to pick our battles. This isn't one you want to fight, Eli. Trust me on that. After she left, I sat staring at my beer and thinking. Sienna's threat had been subtle but clear. She knew about the affair, and she was trying to intimidate me into silence. That told me two things. First, that this had been going on longer than just this weekend, and second, that they thought I was too stupid or too weak to do anything about it. They were wrong on both counts. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through my contacts until I found Detective Ray Halverson. We'd gone to high school together, and he'd helped me out a few years back when someone was vandalizing cars on my lot. Ray? It's Eli Baxter. I need to ask you a hypothetical question about harassment laws. Sunday morning brought rain and revelation. I was sitting in my kitchen drinking coffee and reviewing my options when my neighbor Clive knocked on the door. Clive Morrison was 72 years old and spent most of his retirement watching the neighborhood through his living room window. Most people found him annoying. I found him useful. Morning, Eli. Melissa get back from her trip yet? Not yet. Should be home this afternoon. He shifted uncomfortably on my doorstep. Listen, I probably shouldn't say anything, but I thought you should know. That Travis Kemp fellow has been coming around here while you've been at work, several times over the past few weeks. My coffee suddenly tasted bitter. Coming around how? Parking in your driveway, going inside, staying for hours. Clive's weathered face was apologetic. I wasn't sure if you knew, and it wasn't really my business, but thanks for telling me, Clive. I appreciate it. After he left, I sat staring at the rain and feeling something cold settle in my chest. This wasn't just a weekend fling. They'd been carrying on an affair in my own house, in my own bed, while I was working to pay the mortgage. I spent the morning going through Melissa's things with new eyes. Her laptop was password protected, but she'd always been vain about her appearance. I tried her birth year, 1984. Nothing. Her birthday, yo for a 15. Nothing. Finally, I tried Melissa 1984, and the screen unlocked. Her email was a goldmine of deception. Months of messages between her and Travis, planning their weekend getaways, mocking me, discussing their future together. One email thread from last month made my blood boil. Travis. When are you going to tell him? Melissa. Soon. I want to make sure everything's in place first. The house, the business, everything. I'm not walking away empty-handed. Travis. What about the car lot? Melissa. He mortgaged it twice to keep it afloat. It's basically worthless. But there might be some insurance money if something were to happen to it. Travis. You're brilliant. No wonder I fell for you again. Melissa. Just keep being patient. By Christmas we'll be living together, and Eli will be ancient history. I printed out the entire email chain, my hands shaking with rage. They weren't just having an affair. They were planning to destroy my life and profit from it. My phone rang. Melissa's name appeared on the screen. Hi, honey, I said, forcing my voice to sound normal. How's Bar Harbor? Oh, it's been wonderful, but I'm ready to come home. I miss you. The lie rolled off her tongue so easily it was almost impressive. I miss you too. Drive safe. I will. Love you. Love you too. I hung up and immediately called Frankie. Frank, remember what we talked about yesterday? It's time for phase 2. What do you need, boss? I need you to make some phone calls, and I need you to help me set up a little surprise for when Melissa gets home. Melissa arrived at 6:30, looking guilty and trying too hard to act normal. She kissed me hello and immediately went upstairs to shower, claiming she needed to wash off the hotel smell. While she was upstairs, I forwarded her entire email chain to my own account and deleted the sent message from her computer. Then I did something that would have made Sienna Drake proud. I prepared for battle. At 7, we sat down for dinner. Melissa chattered about her fake weekend, describing restaurants she'd never been to and sights she'd never seen. I nodded and smiled and asked appropriate questions while mentally preparing my opening move. Oh, I forgot to mention, I said casually, cutting into my steak. I ran into Travis Kemp yesterday. He seemed upset about something. Melissa's fork paused halfway to her mouth. Oh? What about? Car trouble. Had to give him a loaner while his BMW gets checked out. Funny thing, though, he acted like he knew me, even asked about you. That's strange. I haven't talked to Travis in years. Really? Because he seemed to know quite a bit about our life together. Our house, your work schedule, even mentioned that you'd been looking tired lately. Melissa's face had gone pale. I have no idea what you're talking about. I pulled out my phone and showed her the photos of the burner phone messages. Want to try that again? The transformation was immediate. The guilty, nervous woman disappeared, replaced by the cold, calculating lawyer I'd married. Her eyes hardened, and her voice took on the tone she used in court. You went through my personal belongings. Your personal belongings? You mean the burner phone you've been using to coordinate your affair? That's not what this is. Then what is it, Melissa? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you've been screwing your ex-boyfriend and planning to take me for everything I'm worth. She stood up abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. I don't have to listen to this. Actually, you do, because we're going to talk about this. We're going to talk about how you've been bringing him into our house. We're going to talk about your plans for my business, and we're going to talk about what happens next. What happens next is I call my lawyer. I laughed, the sound harsh in the quiet kitchen. You are a lawyer, Melissa, and you're about to find out just how much trouble you're in. She stormed upstairs, and I heard her on the phone, her voice rising and falling in angry whispers. I didn't need to hear the words to know she was talking to Travis, probably warning him that their weekend of fun was about to become a nightmare. I was counting on it. Monday morning brought chaos to Willoughby. I arrived at the lot early to find Frankie waiting with a shit-eating grin and a cup of coffee. It's done, boss. Made all the calls you wanted. And? Travis Kemp's company just lost the bid on the Morrison property. Seems the seller decided to go with a more reliable firm. Also, there might be some questions about his building permits on the lakeside development. I'd spent Sunday night making strategic phone calls to people I'd done business with over the years. Car dealers know everyone in a small town, contractors, real estate agents, city council members, bank loan officers. We're the hub that connects all the spokes of local commerce. Travis had made enemies over the years with his arrogant attitude and aggressive business practices. All it took was a few well-placed suggestions about his reliability, his financial stability, and his character. In a small town, reputation is everything. At 9 a.m., Sienna Drake walked into my office without knocking. She looked like she'd slept in her clothes, and her usually perfect hair was disheveled. "You son of a bitch!" she snarled. "What did you do?" "Good morning to you too, Sienna. Coffee?" The entire law firm received Melissa's private emails this morning. Every partner, every associate, even the secretaries. I feigned surprise. That's terrible. How did that happen? You know damn well how it happened. You hacked her email and forwarded everything to the firm's group distribution list. That's a serious accusation. Do you have any proof? Her face was red with fury. This isn't over, Eli. Melissa might lose her job, but you're going to lose everything. Travis has connections you can't even imagine. Travis has problems he can't even imagine, starting with the fact that his company just became my business partner. That stopped her cold. What are you talking about? The Morrison development deal he lost? My friend Jimmy Morrison decided to sell to Baxter Properties instead, which is a subsidiary of Baxter's used cars, which makes Travis's company a subcontractor working for me. It wasn't entirely true, but it didn't need to be. The important thing was that Sienna believed it, and that she would run straight to Travis with the news. She left without another word, her heels clicking angrily on the concrete floor. At noon, my phone rang. Detective Halverson's name appeared on the screen. Ray, what's up? Eli, I need to ask you about some complaints we've received. Travis Kemp claims you've been harassing him. Says you impersonated a mechanic and stole his car. I didn't steal anything. I provided a loaner vehicle for a legitimate recall inspection. I have all the paperwork. What recall? BMW says there's no recall on his model. Then there must have been some confusion. These things happen in the automotive business. I'll make sure his car is returned immediately. See that you do. And Eli? Whatever's going on between you and these people, keep it legal. I don't want to have to arrest an old friend. Understood. I hung up and called Frankie. Time to return Travis's BMW. But first, let's make sure it's been thoroughly inspected. By thoroughly inspected, I meant we'd removed the air freshener, adjusted all the mirrors and seat positions, and programmed every radio preset to country music stations. Small things, but the kind of petty annoyances that would drive someone like Travis absolutely crazy. At 3 p.m., I drove the BMW back to the lakeside mansion, with Frankie following in the Explorer. Travis was waiting in his driveway, pacing like a caged animal. Where the hell have you been? He shouted as I got out of his car. Sorry for the delay. The inspection took longer than expected. Good news, though. No recall necessary. Your car is perfectly fine. He snatched the keys from my hand and immediately got in the BMW, starting the engine. The radio blared Hank Williams Jr., and he quickly turned it off with a disgusted look. If you ever come near me or my property again, I'll have you arrested for harassment. That's funny, because I was going to say the same thing to you, about my wife and my house. Travis stepped out of the car, his face flushed with anger. Your wife came to me, you pathetic loser. She's tired of being married to a small-town nobody who smells like motor oil and failure. Maybe so, but she's still my wife, and you're still trespassing on my property when you visit her. That's going to stop. Or what? You'll key my car? Slash my tires? Face it, Eli. You're out of your league here. I have money, connections, influence. You have a failing used car lot and a wife who can't stand the sight of you. I smiled, the expression feeling cold on my face. You know what I have, Travis? I have nothing left to lose, and that makes me very dangerous. He laughed, but there was uncertainty in his eyes. Is that a threat? It's a promise. Stay away from my wife, stay away from my house, and stay away from me. Because if you don't, you're going to find out just how creative a desperate man can be. I got into the Explorer with Frankie and drove away, leaving Travis standing in his driveway looking confused and angry. Think that'll scare him off? Frankie asked. Not a chance. But that's okay. I'm counting on him being too arrogant to back down. That evening, I came home to find Melissa packing suitcases in our bedroom. She looked up when I entered, her expression defiant. I'm leaving, she announced. Where are you going? That's not your concern anymore. My lawyer will be in touch about the divorce proceedings. Your lawyer? I thought you were a lawyer. I can't represent myself in a divorce, Eli. You should know that. I sat on the edge of the bed, watching her fold clothes with sharp, angry movements. So that's it? 8 years of marriage and you're just walking away? This marriage has been over for months. We both know it. I didn't know it. I thought we were just going through a rough patch. She stopped packing and looked at me with something that might have been pity. You never paid attention, Eli. Not to me, not to what I wanted, not to who I was becoming. You were so focused on your precious car lot and your blue-collar friends that you never noticed your wife was suffocating. So you decided to have an affair instead of talking to me about it. I decided to find someone who understood me. Someone who could give me the life I deserve. And what life is that, Melissa? Because from what I've seen, Travis Kemp is about to have some serious financial problems. She zipped up her suitcase with more force than necessary. Travis has more money than you'll ever see, more ambition, more class, more everything. Had, I corrected. He had those things, but reputations can change quickly in a small town. Something in my tone made her look at me more carefully. What did you do? I played the game, Melissa. The same game you and Travis have been playing for months. The difference is, I know this town better than either of you do. She grabbed her suitcases and headed for the door. This isn't over. No, I agreed. It's not. Tuesday brought news that spread through Willoughby like wildfire. Drake and Associates had suspended Melissa pending an internal investigation into unprofessional conduct. The email chain detailing her affair and her plans to defraud me had been forwarded to the Maine State Bar Association. Sienna Drake was also in hot water. It turned out that someone had anonymously tipped off the firm's managing partners about some irregularities in the client trust account. Irregularities that pointed to embezzlement. I was having lunch at the Rusty Anchor when Marcy brought me the gossip along with my sandwich. "Whole town's talking about it," she said, leaning across the bar conspiratorially. "Melissa Baxter and that Drake woman both in deep trouble, and Travis Kemp's company lost 3 major contracts this week. Is that so?" Word is, people are starting to ask questions about his business practices. Something about cutting corners on building permits and using substandard materials. I'd made more phone calls the night before, to building inspectors who owed me favors, to contractors who'd been undercut by Travis's company, to city council members who'd always been suspicious of his rapid expansion. In a small town, information is currency, and I'd been saving up for years. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "We need to talk. Meet me at the lake house. Come alone. T." I showed the message to Frankie, who was sitting across from me picking at his fish and chips. "You're not seriously thinking of going?" he said. "Why not? I'm curious what he has to say." "It's obviously a trap, boss. He's desperate, and desperate people do stupid things." "Exactly. And I want him to do something stupid. Something public and witnesses." I typed back, "See you at 8 p.m. At 7:30, I drove out to Rangeley Lake with my phone set to record and a small crowd of backup. I'd called Ray Halverson and told him I was concerned about threats from Travis. I'd also mentioned to several people around town that I was meeting with Travis to discuss business. In a small town, news travels fast. By the time I reached the lake house, there were already a few cars parked along the road, curious neighbors and gossips drawn by the promise of drama. Travis met me at the door, and he looked like hell. His usually perfect hair was disheveled, his clothes wrinkled, and his eyes had the wild look of a man watching his world collapse. "You son of a bitch," he snarled. "You destroyed everything." "I didn't destroy anything, Travis. I just stopped protecting it. My company is ruined. My reputation is shot. The bank is calling in loans I've had for years. That's what happens when people start asking the right questions. Amazing how quickly things fall apart when you're not paying off the right people." He grabbed me by the shirt, his face inches from mine. "You think you're so smart, don't you? You think you've won? I think I've evened the score. Well, here's something you didn't plan on." He shoved me backward, and I stumbled against the deck railing. "Melissa's pregnant. The words hit me like a physical blow. What? That's right. She's carrying my baby. So no matter what happens with the divorce, no matter what you've done to my business, I'm going to be connected to your wife forever. I stared at him, my mind reeling. Pregnant. Melissa was pregnant with Travis's child. You're lying. Am I? Ask her yourself. As if on cue, Melissa appeared from inside the house. She looked pale and shaken, but there was a defiant set to her jaw that I recognized. Hello, Eli. Is it true? She nodded slowly. I found out yesterday. I was going to tell you, but you decided to tell your boyfriend first. Travis isn't just my boyfriend. He's the father of my child, and we're getting married. I looked between them, these two people who had systematically destroyed my life, my marriage, my trust. They stood there expecting me to collapse, to beg, to make some desperate plea for reconciliation. Instead, I started to laugh. You think this is funny? Travis demanded. I think it's perfect, I said, pulling out my phone, because now I don't have to feel guilty about what comes next. I showed them the screen, which displayed a recording app that had been running for the past 10 minutes. Congratulations, Travis. You just confessed to adultery and conspiracy to commit fraud in front of witnesses. And Melissa, you just admitted to planning to defraud me while carrying another man's child. Travis lunged for the phone, but I was ready for him. I sidestepped and let his momentum carry him into the deck railing. He bounced off and came at me again, this time with his fists raised. Give me that phone. Too late. It's already uploaded to the cloud. He swung at me, a wild haymaker that I easily ducked. His fist connected with the glass door behind me, shattering it and cutting his knuckles. Travis, stop! Melissa screamed. But Travis was beyond reason. He came at me again, blood streaming from his hand, his face twisted with rage. This time I didn't dodge. I stepped into his charge and drove my shoulder into his chest, sending him sprawling backward onto the deck. He tried to get up, slipped on his own blood, and went down again. That's when Detective Halverson appeared, along with two other officers. Everybody freeze! Ray shouted, his weapon drawn. Travis looked up from the deck, blood on his face and fury in his eyes. Arrest him! He attacked me! I see a man with bloody knuckles and broken glass, and another man without a scratch on him, Ray said calmly. Want to explain what happened here? I held up my phone. It's all recorded, Ray. Self-defense. As the police sorted out the situation, more people arrived. Word had spread through town that there was drama at the lake house, and half of Willoughby seemed to have found reasons to drive by. They got to witness Travis being arrested for assault. They got to hear Melissa screaming at me about ruining her life. They got to see the perfect couple's perfect life fall apart in spectacular fashion. By the time the dust settled, Travis was in custody, Melissa was hysterical, and I was free to go. The recording on my phone would ensure that any charges against me would be dropped, while Travis faced assault charges and a very public humiliation. As I drove home through the gathering darkness, I felt something I hadn't experienced in months. Peace. The next morning brought the final act of my revenge. I'd spent the night making copies of everything, the emails, the recordings, the evidence of Travis's business irregularities. I hand-delivered packages to the local newspaper, the state attorney general's office, and the Maine State Bar Association. By noon, the story was front-page news in the Willoughby Gazette. Local lawyer and developer caught in adultery and fraud scandal. By evening, it had been picked up by the Portland Press-Herald and the Bangor Daily News. Travis made bail, but found himself facing multiple investigations and lawsuits. His company collapsed within a week, and his assets were frozen pending the outcome of various legal proceedings. Melissa lost her law license and found herself unemployable in Maine's legal community. The pregnancy she'd thought would trap me into a generous divorce settlement instead became evidence of her adultery and fraud. Sienna Drake was arrested for embezzlement and disbarred. As for me, I kept the car lot, kept the house, and kept my dignity. The divorce was finalized 6 months later, with Melissa getting nothing but her personal belongings and a reputation that would follow her wherever she went. Travis and Melissa left town together, broke and disgraced, to start over somewhere else. I heard through the grapevine that they'd moved to Florida, where Travis was working as a used car salesman and Melissa was waiting tables. The irony wasn't lost on me. I was closing up the lot one evening when Frankie approached with 2 beers and a satisfied grin. "So, boss, any regrets?" I thought about it as I watched the sun set over Willoughby. 8 years of marriage, gone. A woman I'd loved and trusted, revealed as a stranger. A life I'd built, nearly destroyed by people who thought I was too stupid and too weak to fight back. "None," I said finally. They wanted to play games with someone they thought was helpless. They found out different. "What's next for you?" I smiled and raised my beer in a toast. "Whatever I want. And that's the best revenge of all." We drank to that as the stars came out over Maine, and for the first time in months, I felt like I was exactly where I belonged. They say every story has a moral. Mine's simple: don't mess with the underdog. You might just get bit. Weekend's canceled. So's your happy ending.